Divers and people who spend a lot of time underwater, what's the creepiest, most unexplainable thing you've seen while in the depths? On a night dive in Scripps Canyon, a cormorant rammed directly into my dive light at high speed and knocked itself unconscious. I thought it was dead, but gently brought it back to the surface, where it woke up and took off. Got charged by a mother humpback. Her curious calf had swum around us, and we were between her and the calf. Two of us never saw it coming. We were watching the baby, but our third diver watched her come. She kicked down and swam under us last minute. We didn't see anything until that 60-foot freight train passed just underneath us. I dropped my goggles and was trying to reach down in the river and grab it, but I pulled out a sheep's skull by its sockets. Wasn't as creepy in hindsight, but 10-year-old me was scared. Rescue/recovery diver here. Every time I've recovered a drowning victim I get the creeps. Unfortunately, a lot of people are under the impression that every underwater environment is like the movies, and there's absolute clarity. That's rarely the case. One evening I got called out for a young girl that jumped from a bridge. She likely survived the fall and entry. We have a morbid term for what happened to her upon hitting the water. Plugged. I found her with a surprising amount of visibility in relatively shallow water. She was stuck in the mud to just below her knees, and you could see the fear locked into her eyes/face. There's nothing peaceful about suicide by bridge. You can dive in man-made lakes and check out what's left of old flooded homes and communities. It's pretty dark and spooky down there no matter what, especially when you think of all the big fish swimming around that are barely silhouettes until they're close. My buddy likes to dive in lakes. He said the creepiest thing, by far, is finding cemeteries 100 foot plus beneath the water in the dark. Eerie quiet. 4-day edit. I asked him about big fish. He said there's definitely shit down there bigger than he expected, 4 or 5 feet. They're attracted to the lights and noise, but watch from a distance, which is nonetheless disinteresting, just dark, second shapes drifting nearby. None of the monsters other folks are bringing up though. I had a dive master that told me once he was diving somewhere and found a full skeleton wearing diving gear with the air on the tank turned off pretty deep down. If I remember correctly, they said they reported it to the police, and it was found out the man's wife turned off his air while they were on a dive to murder him. When living off the coast, some buddies and I would take regular fishing trips out to the oil rigs. We would always have some lines out and a few would dive down and try to spear some mangrove snapper or cobia. Once while I and 2 others were diving down checking out the structure, we decided we needed to move due to lack of life around the rig. We all get back in the boat, and as one of my buddies is reeling in a line we had a red snapper baited on, an easily 8-10 foot tiger shark starts chewing on it right behind the prop, so close I could have poked his eye out. The idea that massive animal was in the water, so close to me and 2 of my friends, but no one saw it, is terrifying. I bet he was watching us the whole time. Edit. Grandma. When I was a kid swimming in the lake at summer camp, I dove underwater, and I swear I saw someone in scuba gear hiding underneath the dock watching us. I told the lifeguard, but he wasn't able to find anyone. I used to teach canoeing lessons to Boy Scout troops at a local neighborhood lake. Super small lake that's not very deep, but the bottom was hella thick with vegetation. The water was dark, so you couldn't see your hands in front of you for more than like 5 inches under the surface. There was a small clubhouse, an open pavilion, and a playground all on the property. When doing lifeguard work in the water during a swim test, my sunglasses fell off my head. I dove down to find them, and shit you not, I found a sunken, entangled hospital gurney at the bottom of the lake. It took a few people to untangle it, but how the F it got there was beyond me. Clearly it had been under the water for years. I've done a number of dives, and the strangest thing I ever saw was a large deep freezer with a heavy industrial chain wrapped around multiple times with about 5 cinder blocks attached. It was very rusted, and the deep freezer itself had to have been 30+ years old, probably more. This was about 90 feet deep just off Vancouver Island, Canada. The situation gave myself and the other divers the nooby-jeebies. Logged the GPS and depth coordinates, and notified the police. We were able to find out what was inside, since one of the divers had friends with local police. 10 porcelain dolls. Edit. Wording and typos. My story is not very exciting, but anyway. First time diving on Australia and first time diving with sharks. We start descending, and the guide is at the front of the group looking for the sharkies. I'm at the back of the group. Suddenly I turn my head left, and there's this 6-foot MF about a foot or two from my face. He just swam peacefully past the group. It was a bit creepy, but lots of fun. I used to do a lot of night dives hunting for lobster off the coast of California. We'd start at 9 or 10 at night, so everything is obviously pitch black besides where we were pointing our lights. Every so often I'd get this unshakable feeling that something big was watching or following me. Sometimes I could quiet that part of my brain and continue with the dive. Other times I couldn't shake the feeling and would end the dive after a few minutes. It's a hard feeling to describe, but I guess I'd compare it to being in a haunted house, but 50 feet underwater in complete darkness. Not a diver, but heard from old divers that worked for the Corps of Engineers that there's some huge catfish around the bottom of the dams, like the size of vans. I once went diving in Port Elizabeth, South Africa, where it is quite popular to see sharks. We begin diving, and we are quite far from the shore. There's a cool looking structure under us. We swim towards it to get a closer look, and I just start getting this cold feeling running through my body, and that's when a shark appeared, and I physically shat myself from fear. Not a diver, but when I was surfing NZ's West Coast beach I felt something wrap around my leg. So I looked down, and it was fishing line. So I tried to pull it up, and then the line got heavy. I assumed it was a fish, but as I pulled the line closer it got really heavy, and I began to sink. So I hopped on my board and paddled closer to shore. I slid off my board and was in chest deep water. My friend came over cause he noticed something was wrong. We both pulled the fishing line in, and we saw a large silhouette in the water, so we dragged it to the surface, and it was a dead body. Someone rock fishing fell off the rocks last week and was missing. There was a hook stabbed into his neck, and fishing line wrapped around his face and dug into his skin. We brought the dude's body to the shore, and called in the lifeguards, then threw up due to the lack of his eyes. I do not dive often, but I had gone to a lake with a couple of friends and we were all diving in different parts of the lake to look for others' lost belongings. I was bringing up an ammo box I had found. I looked over to a group of my friends at the dock and one was holding what looked like a small cloth bag, so I didn't really bother walking over to check it out and kept diving. Turns out it was a bag full of small urns with the same name on it. It really spooked us, so we figured whoever put it there wants it there, so we put them back and left almost immediately afterwards. Edit. Spelling corrections. My dad is a diver and once he found a dead person that was deemed missing for quite a while. The guy was fishing with a harpoon. I'm not a natural English speaker, so I can't use the correct term, and his harpoon was stuck inside the skull of a huge sea bass. He probably died because he didn't measure his breath correctly, and the bass didn't die immediately, so he actually fought back and became the harpoon was connected in the belt of the guy's belt. He couldn't escape in time, so he drowned. Point is, my dad discovered a half decomposed body of a dead person floating like a horrifying flesh balloon. Have a nice day. I once saw someone's escaped pet iguana swimming underwater at my local lake as a kid. That scared the shit out of me. Does that count? So, 3 days ago I went snorkeling off Nemba Island in Zanzibar. Everything went normal, and we start heading back. I grabbed my net bag and put my black fins, black mask, snorkel and black wetsuit inside. Once back ashore, I grab my bag, jump off the boat and head to the rental office to return the equipment. At that point I feel my bag is moving somehow. At first look, it seemed like a flat, black worm squirming quickly. After rotating the bag, I realized I was looking only at the tail of an otherwise 1 meter long, black sea snake. https://n.mwiki.org/wiki/sea_snake_venom. One of the most venomous reptiles I could find, trying to get out of the net. How it got there, I have no freaking clue. People dive in Flathead Lake near where I live. It is a dark murky lake. I have seen some large fish, like 5 feet long around the edges of the lake. Divers have told me the really big fish, around 8 or 10 feet long, are smart and will not approach you too close, but will stay floating in the murk just barely visible as ominous moving shadows. Edit. Word/grammar.